Okay, I'm going to play a game against Stockfish level 6, which is a 2300 engine. The time control is 20 minutes with a 30-second increment. Okay, so I got black. I'll play a double king's pawn opening. And turn the piece sound off. Okay, a Vienna game, knight c3. So I like knight f6 here. I'm still in book. All right, I can transpose to a four knights game. I think I'm going to do that. An Italian four knights, bishop c4, which I think is a slight inaccuracy. Black has a central fork trick, so I'm still in book here. I'm going to go ahead and play quickly. So the point is, if he takes the knight, then there is d5 forking his minor pieces. So he simply castles. Okay, so what do I do here? So he's sacrificing a pawn to get quick activity for his pieces. The rook is coming to e1. My e-pawn is in danger. I'm thinking knight takes c3 to gain a tempo rather than retreating my knight. I can leave the knight there. I still have the central fork trick. So bishop e7, blocking the e-file, getting ready to castle, or knight takes c3 are two possible moves here. Maybe knight d6, attacking his bishop. Probably don't want to block my d-pawn and my dark square bishop. So let's analyze bishop e7. So bishop e7, knight takes e4, d5, bishop d3, d takes e4, bishop takes e4. He gets the pawn back. I think that transposes to normal lines where white has played knight takes e4 instead of castling. Okay, what about knight takes c3? So knight takes c3, d takes c3 opens up his dark square bishop and the d-file for his pieces. Then maybe, so after knight takes c3, d takes c3, maybe d6 to bolster my e-pawn with the intent of playing bishop e7 and castling and just hanging on to a pawn. He will be better developed than I am, though. He's getting compensation. Any other moves besides bishop e7? Knight takes c3. I don't like knight d6. Can give a pawn back with a d5. I don't like leaving danger on the e-file, though. Bishop e7. I'm gravitating towards bishop e7. He doesn't have to play knight takes e4 there. He could play rook e1. Then knight takes c3, d takes c3, d6, transposing to the other line I talked about. So bishop e7, the danger move to think about after bishop e7 is knight takes e4. Other moves look safe for black. So bishop e7, knight takes e4, d5, forking the minor pieces. It's a number of responses. There's also bishop e7, bishop takes f7, king takes f7, knight takes e4, d5, knight g5 check, king g8, rook e1. And he's quick to the e file. Bishop d6 there. That's possible. So bishop e7, knight takes e4, d5, bishop takes d5, queen takes d5, looks okay. Or bishop d3, d takes e4, bishop takes e4, looks okay. Okay, I'm going to go with bishop e7. It's kind of a complicated situation. I took a lot of time there. Okay, so he takes the knight, so I believe I have to play d5 to fork his pieces and get my piece back. I don't see anything else, so I'm going to play it. Okay, bishop b5 was a move I didn't consider. Pinning my knight, threatening knight takes e5. But I have to get my piece back, so d takes e4 looks forced, I believe. So d takes e4. Is it safe? Knight takes e5. Very interesting way he's playing this Italian four knights. I've never had a human play it like this before. I'll be interested to look at the opening database and the engine in these first 7 or 8 moves. Okay, but I believe I have to take the knight. Okay, so I can castle or play bishop d7. So material is equal. So castle leads to capturing twice on c6, white winning a pawn. So castle, knight takes c6, b takes c6, bishop takes c6, rook b8. Then he gets my pawn on e4 as well. So castling doesn't look good. My pawn on e4 is very vulnerable. Rook e1 is coming. Yeah, castling doesn't look good. Bishop d7 just gives up the bishop pair. Knight takes d7, queen takes d7, rook e1. Maybe queen f5, attacking his bishop, protecting e4. He can play bishop takes c6, doubling my pawns. And maybe I can guard c6 now with my queen. So another move is queen d6 or queen d5. Queen d5 forking his pieces. So queen d5 looks forcing. If he plays, after queen d5, if he plays knight takes c6, I can even play queen takes b5. And then knight takes e7, king takes e7. Might be dangerous to put my king on e7. Okay, so queen d5, knight takes c6, b takes c6, gains a tempo on his bishop, and my e-pawn is bolstered. I like that. So queen d5, bishop takes c6, check, b takes c6, and he has to do something about his knight. He could play d4 or f4. Probably not f4, opening the dark square diagonal to his king. If d4, e takes d3 en passant, knight takes d3, I can castle, looks safe. Queen d5 I think is better than bishop d7. Queen d5 also bolsters my e-pawn. I'm going to play it. Okay, let's go for that. Okay, I'm in check. My move is forced. I must take back with the pawn or lose material. Okay, he just moves the knight away. So material is equal. I have the bishop pair. My pawn structure is shattered. So castling here. I see no reason to delay castling. Castling looks safe. I don't think he has a threat. He has knight e3, can threaten my queen. My queen can move to a variety of squares. He has rook e1. My e-pawn is already defended. If I castle, I can get a rook to e8 quickly to help in the defense of my e-pawn. Taking the knight should be considered. Bishop takes g4, queen takes g4. Then castle, that just helps him develop, gets rid of my bishop pair. I don't want to do that. Bishop a6, attacking the rook, rook e1. Doesn't seem helpful to me. Okay, we're going to castle. Looks safe. Okay, he's allowing me to get rid of my weak e-pawn. So e takes d3. It's a possible move here. If e takes d3, I think he has to recapture with his pawn, because e takes d3, queen takes d3 allows bishop takes g4. My queen is defended on d5. So he's helping my pawn structure and hurting his. E takes d3, c takes d3, then maybe bishop a6, attacking the d3 pawn and pinning it to the rook on f1. There's no defense against that. Okay, I know e takes d3 is the only move I'm considering here. Bishop takes g4 is still not great. Rook b8 is a possible move, but let's play e takes d3. Okay, he doesn't take back immediately. Hits the queen, probably a good idea. So where does my queen belong? So that does allow him now to take back with the queen. If I keep my queen in contact with d3, then if he plays queen takes d3, I can capture the queen and give him an isolated pawn on d3. maybe queen d4 here. If queen d4, you can gain a tempo with c3. That gives up, that makes it harder for him to capture my d-pawn. Is my queen too vulnerable on d4? If the knight moves, he can put his bishop on e3 and gain a tempo on the queen. Queen on d4 doesn't have any threats. Okay, I should consider d takes c2 here. D takes c2, knight takes d5, c takes d1, queening. Wins material, because I'll win the knight on d5. No, he'll take on e7 with check first. I'll lose material. So d takes c2, knight takes d5, c takes d1 equals queen, knight takes e7 check, king h1, rook takes d1, and I'm down a minor piece. Okay, so that's not possible, so I have to move the queen. So I want to stay in contact with the d3 pawn, so queen to d4 or queen to b5 possibly. Queen to b5, maybe. I can make a battery with bishop a6. Attacking f1 potentially in the future. But the knight is guarding f1. Can play a safer queen d7, blocking the light squared bishop, but still bishop a6 is possible. Queen d7 looks safer. There's no way for him to attack any of my pieces, and my bishop on e7 will be safe. I'm going to play queen d7. Probably shouldn't have taken several minutes for that move. Okay, he takes the pawn. I'm tempted to trade queens here and give him an isolated pawn. Otherwise, I'm just going to be passive. Could play rook d8, but in the interest of time, I'm going to trade queens. It's safe. He has to take back. He has no intermezzos, no Zwischenzugs. Okay, so maybe I can attack this weak d3 pawn. Maybe bishop a6. He can't move it forward. It's pinned to his rook. So bishop a6 maybe forces rook d1. And then I can place one of my rooks on d8 and attack it again. Then he can push it to d4. And I can play bishop to f6, attacking it again. I'm going to begin by attacking the pawn. Is bishop a6 safe? He has no captures, no checks. He can't even, well, he can play knight to f5 to threaten my bishop. My bishop can go to f6. That looks safe. Okay, safe move. Going to speed up a little bit. Okay, I didn't consider that. He blocks the attack on the pawn. And from there, his knight can go to e5 and attack c6. I can play bishop f6 here. Bishop f6 controls the square in front of the pawn. It keeps the bishop on c1 at home since it's defending b2. Keeps the b pawn at home. Bishop f6 maybe is a better square for that dark squared bishop, which can be attacked with rook e1. I can also move a rook here. Rook b8, rook e8, rook d8. So one of the rooks to to d8 attacks the d pawn. Maybe forcing rook d1. Okay, I'm going to play bishop f6. It looks safe. He can't attack anything. Capture, check. I see no threats. He can play bishop f4 and threaten the c7 pawn at any time. That's interesting. No, you can't do it if I play bishop f6, though. So I'm going to play bishop f6. All right, I keep saying I'm going to play faster, but I have to play much faster. All right, we can trade here. I can take the knight, and he captures my bishop back, and then I take the b pawn. He moves the rook, maybe rook from a to b1, and bishop back to f6, and then he can take the c7 pawn with his bishop. It's looking a little drawish now. I thought I had an advantage. Do I have anything here? I don't want to put a rook on c8 passively defending the pawn. I can play rook, say, f to d8, attacking the d3 pawn. Bishop takes c7, rook takes d3, attacks the knight. I don't want to give up the bishop pair. I might do so to simplify. Yeah, low on time, I like to simplify matters, so I'm going to take the knight, I think. Is that safe? I think he has to recapture. And then I can take the b pawn. Looks safe. That line I mentioned looks safe. We're going to play it. I need to simplify when the time is low. So bishop takes b2, attacks the rook, rook b1. I can put the bishop then on d4, and if he takes on c7, I can push my pawn to c5 and have a really solid setup with a bishop and pawn. I have to watch out for his rook infiltrating on b7 though, so I might have to play something against that. Yeah, his rook coming to b1 and his bishop going to c7 means he will have control of the b file since I can't play a rook to b8. Might have to play rook to c8, drive the bishop back, but he can still control b8. Looks like he's going to get a rook in. Might not be that devastating to get a rook in. I might be able to get a rook to the 7th rank. Anyway, if he does, I can play a rook to e8 and then to e2. Might eventually have to get lift for my king. Okay, he's going to take my c-pawn no matter what. I can't put a rook behind it. That's too passive. So I better get a pawn. It looks safe, safe-ish. Okay, he attacks the bishop. I've got to put it back somewhere. I was thinking d4. d4 also eyes the f2 square in case I get a rook from a rook to e2. I like bishop to d4, and then bishop takes c7, and then I have a number of moves. I have c5, rook e8. I'm gonna have to grant him that he'll put his rook on b7. I only have the one pawn on that side of the board to worry about. I'm going to play bishop d4. Let's try to stay above 5 minutes. I'm not looking at the times relatively here because the engine is just purposely not taking time to make its moves. It doesn't have to in order to play 2300 strength. Okay, I don't want to give him the d file, so I think I'm going to be playing c5 here. c5 looks safe, as safe as can be. He's looking a little more active than I am. I have an extra pawn for now until he takes on c7. Okay, he's getting his king activated. That's a good idea, keeping a rook off of e2. But now he hasn't taken c7, so I can put a rook on b8 to challenge the b file. So rook b8, let's say rook a b8, bishop takes c7, rook takes b1, rook takes b1. He's got the b file anyway. Okay, maybe I can put a rook f e8 and then a king to f8, and then I can always have the option of playing a rook to e7 to defend the 7th rank. Can get my rooks on light squares too, away from his dark squared bishop. Just realized I can push my c-pawn to c6 and he can't take it. Not that that's a great pawn. Probably wouldn't make any difference. Might just give him an extra move to push to c6. Okay, I'm taking too much time. I'm going to play rook to e8. My rooks need to be active. Okay, he challenges that e-file. I can play king f8 here. It was a good idea to put his rook on e1 because I had the possibility of playing bishop to e5 there. Okay, if I trade rooks, rook takes e1. If he plays rook takes e1 in return, I can play king f8, keeping his rook out. If he plays king takes e1, it's helping his king. I should help my king. King f8 seems reasonable. I want to get closer to 5 minutes again. He doesn't have bishop to d6 check. He does now in his next move. Okay. So what do I do about the coming bishop to d6? Can I play rook e6 now? Rook e6, rook takes e6, f takes e6. Is that e-pawn going to be, isolated e-pawn going to be vulnerable? Should be able to hold it with my king. I don't know why I want to play rook e6. Potentially double rooks, keep his bishop off of d6. I can play f6, so if bishop d6 check, king f7. He can attack my c5 pawn. He can play bishop to d6 and a rook to b5, say. I can play my pawn to a6 to control that b5 square. I'm really low on time here. I think I'm going to play king to e6. Is that safe? Rook takes rook, pawn takes rook. Looks safe. Rook to b8 check, rook takes rook, bishop takes rook, looks safe. I think it's safe. Okay, let's build up a little more time. I don't want to lose on time here. Okay, I have to recapture, gain some time. Okay, his king is getting active. I want to play king to e7 here, keeping this bishop off of d6. But I'm worried about rook to b7. Yeah, this is kind of a pain having his rook potentially coming to b7. I can play king e8. Let's play king e8. So I can come to d7 with a tempo. Ooh. Okay, trapping my rook in the corner. Threatening rook to b7. My bishop is holding the g7 pawn, though. I'm uncomfortable in this position. I can play king d7, rook b7 check, king c8. His rook would have to retreat. No, king c8 would win a piece, I think. Rook d7. I don't think he can play rook to b7 there, so I'm going to activate my king. Okay. Yeah, he can't play his rook there. I can eject his bishop now with king c8. Can even play e5, limiting the scope of his bishop. Possible drawing plan is e5, followed by king c8, bishop d6, king d7, bishop b8 with a repetition. Of course, if I play e5, he can play f4 or g3 and f4. Okay, let's try to eject his bishop. Even though my king belongs toward the center of the board, not making backwards progress with my king. Okay, I can shut his bishop out now with f4. I mean e5, but then he has f4. You can open it right back up. Need to get my rook activated, maybe push my a pawn. I think I should push my a pawn maybe to a light square. His pieces are just so much better than mine right now. Maybe my bishop on d4 is good, but it's not doing anything. Okay, I'm going to try to get my rook to a7. Then I have to watch out for rook b8 check. Okay, his king is getting much better than mine. Yeah, if I play rook a7, then I can get my king off the back rank, and I can even play rook b7. I'm not worried about rook b8 check here. Okay, so can I play just rook b8? I mean rook b7 rather. And then if rook e1, I can play king d7. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Maybe I can hold on to a draw. Now it's looking drawish. Okay, I have to recapture back over 3 minutes. All right, but his king is very quick. Although I do have all of these squares covered right now. Okay, I think I have to get my king back in a hurry towards the left side of the board, the king side of the board. So king to c6 is the obvious plan here. I'm glad my pawn is on a6 rather than a5 where he can pick it off. Okay, I've got to get my king back. I see nothing else. Okay. Maybe king d7 here. I guess I could go for his a pawn. I can play king b6 and run for that a pawn. Is that safe? I think I have things under control on the other side of the board. I have these squares are cutting off his king, and I could even push this pawn here and stop him from going to that square, make a nice wall. So can I play king b6 here and win that pawn? I don't see why not. Oh, he can play bishop to e5. He could have played that last move. Bishop e5, challenging my bishop. And then if I took his bishop, king takes bishop, and his king is very quick. Although I might queen the a pawn very fast. He still doesn't have a passed pawn. So king b6, bishop e5, bishop takes e5, king takes e5, king a5, king takes e6, king takes a4. King d5 just allows king b4, and I'm queening. Yeah, I'm queening. I think king b6 is going to force him into some kind of defensive posture. Well, no, king b6, he has bishop to e1, just cutting my king off from getting to a5. Okay, so maybe do I play bishop c3 now to stop bishop to e1 and then king to b6? Ah, that might be it. I think I'm going to do that. Bishop c3. The plan is to get the king to a5 and win that a pawn. Is that safe? I mean, you can always play king d3. It's okay. I don't mind his king going backwards. We'll think about it here. Gain a little time. I'm down to about a minute. Okay, I thought that's not a good plan for him. I think I'm going to win this a pawn in the game. Bishop takes e5. King takes e5 is forced. King b6. What's he going to do? King takes e5. I mean, king takes e6. The pawn is just too slow. King a5. Oh, who's going to queen first here? Okay, so bishop takes e5, king takes e5, king b6, king takes e6, king a5, king f7, king takes a4, king takes g7, king b3. He's going to queen first. I'll queen after, though. What else do I have here? All right, I'm almost out of time. I wish I had more time to calculate that for sure. All right, that seems less committal. Not trading bishops. I didn't even realize my pawn was hanging. That's what happens when you're in time trouble and you make a move without even calculating your move. Now he can run. Oh, he's got me every way now. I want to play bishop c3 to keep his king off of e5. And maybe I can put my bishop back on d4. So bishop c3, what does he have there? I just lost a pawn, but he's going to lose that a pawn. Okay. So I think bishop d4 to protect the c5 pawn before going king a5. He can play bishop e5 again, but I'll be another tempo closer, I think. So I'm going to play that. Protect the pawn, threaten king a5. Okay, now his pawn gets a tempo closer to queening. Is there a reason not to play king a5 here? King a5, bishop e5. I could even move the the bishop instead of trading. I'll think about it then. So king a5. So I'm down a pawn. I have no idea what the outcome of this game is going to be. Okay, so let's just count. If I play bishop takes e5, king takes e5, then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 moves to queen. And he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves to queen. Okay, that's terrible for me. I can't take the bishop. So where do I put the bishop? Do I leave it there and just take the a-pawn? Let's count that out. Leave it there. Take the a-pawn. Then bishop takes d4. C takes d4. And if he plays c5, I can bring the king back to b5. All right, I'm going to leave it there. I didn't calculate that all, but I had 14 seconds. Bad time management in this game. Okay, I leave it there. I think I have to take back. I have no reason not to. I'm going to lose if I don't. Oh, he's really coming fast with these pawns. I think king b4 here, or maybe king b3. King b4 keeps an eye on the c pawn. I have to get a pawn queened, so I think king b4 is forced, whether it wins or loses or draws, I don't know. I have a feeling I'm losing. Okay, I see no reason not to push the a pawn here. I have no useful king moves. Anything else is losing a tempo. I have to push this a pawn. He's queening first. But I'm queening with the check. Okay, let's remove a pawn, I think. Okay, e takes f5, g takes f5, a4, f6, a3, f7, a2, f8 queen, a1 queen. And he's up a couple pawns in a queen endgame. Can I get a perpetual? Probably would be able to win the c4 pawn. Is there any reason not to take the pawn on f5? What about e5? Check. King takes e5. No, that doesn't help. Just loses a pawn. We're going to take that. Okay, exciting endgame. Can I hang on to a draw? I'm definitely not winning. He's queening first. I'm queening with check. When I'm so low on time, of course the computer is going to be much better at calculating these endgames. Oh, he's queening with check. I'm looking at him. I'm not even looking at myself. Okay, I'm dead lost here. He can even sacrifice his queen for my a-pawn. Yeah, I'm dead lost. Let's play a couple more moves. Well, I expected to lose against a 2300 engine. All right, I'll resign. Yeah, even if I can queen that pawn, he can sack his queen for it if he needed to. I don't think he even needs to, but he's got a one game. Okay, let's resign here. All right, I'm going to analyze this a little bit. Let me look at this opening. I'll ask for a computer analysis, see how many mistakes and blunders I made. Okay, maybe I can make this a little smaller so you can see this. All right, I'm going to check out this opening. So we played a four knights, Italian four knights here. And yeah, the top move in the database is knight takes e4. And then knight takes e4 is the most common response, but castling is the second most common. And the engine doesn't like castling. It says this is even, zeros. Castling is a minus 0.7. And that's a depth 29 in the cloud. So engine didn't like that move. Okay, by the way, I did not play well. 5 inaccuracies, 3 mistakes, 2 blunders, 45 average cent upon loss. Stockfish played much better. 4 inaccuracies, 1 mistake, 1 blunder, 27 average cent upon loss. Okay, so let's learn what I did wrong. Okay, so it did not like bishop e7. It went from a negative 0.7 to 0.4. What should I have played? Okay, it says I should just take on c3, d takes c3, and it likes h6 here. That's weird. Why h6? Keeping the knight off of g5 to attack f7, but can I play, what's wrong with bishop e7? Oh, there's queen d5 as an attack. Double attack here and here. Okay, this is something I should analyze later, this opening. I should learn more about this four knights Italian variation, especially with castles. Castles is a move I didn't know. I knew other moves, but not castles. All right, so I played the opening inaccurately, apparently. Although here it's about equal. Yeah, it liked my move queen d5. That was the top engine choice. Okay, it says knight takes was better. Okay, now it says I've got a good, strong advantage. Yeah, I did like this position. The two bishops, better developed, safer. Well, not safer, but safe. So where did I blow it? So it likes queen b5 here. Now it also likes queen d7. Trading queens was correct. It likes rook d8 better there. Probably because I didn't anticipate knight c4. So what happens after rook d8? It still likes knight c4. That's weird. Well, no, then if I take if I take the pawn after knight c4, if I take the pawn, there's knight here. And it's a little awkward to defend. Or instead of knight there, it likes bishop e3. Just developing in a hurry. Okay. Let's get back to the game. Bishop a6, knight c4. Bishop f6, there's an inaccuracy. It says rook f d8, attacking the pawn. It's about equal now. Still equal after taking there and there. Okay, equal. It's about equal. It says I should play bishop to b6 here. I wonder why. I really like this formation, these, blocking this d file. I don't quite understand that. I'll have to look into that more deeply later. Bishop b6 looks wrong because if he puts a rook on the c file, he's threatening c5. What do I know? Well, it defends this pawn. I didn't even really think about defending that pawn. It's not much of a difference, though. It says I should take the rook. King f8's almost as good. Ah, that's a bad move. Okay, so that's a mistake. Rook e6. Why is that such a bad move? It says I should just trade. Yeah, if I trade, I was worried about activating his king, but with his... I don't know. Let's see, what happens? Yeah, he's going to grab the E file with the rook. If he took back with the king, then I can activate my own king onto the E file. G6, it says. Check, king here. Gets the rook to the 7th. Yeah, it likes white here too, so maybe if you give it a few more moves, that's not so great. Okay, but why is this move so terrible? So he exchanged, which is correct. And then it says king d2 was inaccurate. Yeah, he probably should have just put his rook on the 7th rank right there before I can get my king off the back rank. Well, I didn't get it off the back rank. Yeah, the engine says that's an inaccuracy. Rook to b7 was best. Yeah, I thought his pieces were better here. It says he has a 2-point advantage now. Gives most of it away with f3. So he had this move apparently, attacking this pawn. What about here? King d4, attacking that again. Yeah, things are starting to fall apart. What about here? Yeah, I don't know why this isn't holding. Okay, his king is just better than mine. My rook is tied down to that A pawn. Okay, let's get back to the game. It's already a long video. I'll just fly through the game here. Let's see if I was always losing. So that move apparently is losing. That's a blunder. I just couldn't count everything out. Okay, give up that pawn. So running for the A pawn, this is just not counting out well. Didn't save enough time for the end game. Completely losing. So my plan of running for the A pawn the whole time was probably misguided. I probably should have just tried to defend the king side and hold for a draw. It's funny the computer likes this move much better than king here. It is closer to the A pawn. This maybe just loses a tempo. Yeah, I changed my mind. I went back for the A pawn after going to C6. Okay, I can analyze this deeply later. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you learned something. I sure did.